All right, everybody, welcome back to Fingers Crossed Motorsports. I filmed a bit the other day, but it didn't really work out all that well, so I'm just refilming it. This is my 2006 Volvo S60R. It's a little taken apart. For you guys that don't know, this is Volvo's version of a performance car. So it has all-wheel drive, a 6-speed manual transmission, and came with a 2.5-liter turbocharged 5-cylinder under the hood. I had this slightly, modded with some bolt-ons, and I had a tune on it and stuff, and it made roughly 310 all-wheel horsepower and 340-50 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. I have the dyno sheet somewhere. This car I bought a few years ago, had 80-some thousand miles on it. It was an R title because of some hail damage, as you can see, all here. Little dents, let me skip it, yeah, right there. This has some things in it, and the roof's real bad too. I don't know if you could see that on the camera. So it being already an R title, I didn't really care much about ripping it apart. I've taken the engine out. That's one thing that happened. The suspension's obviously apart because I needed to get all the engine stuff out. I have changed the interior a little bit. I got these nice, fancy, cheap energy seats. Made a custom mount down there for it. We'll talk about it eventually. Here's a leaf. I'll talk about those. They're just a quick little temporary thing because nobody makes a seat bracket for these. Here's kind of what the interior looks like. Have this sick gauge cluster with the two things here. Plus, I think the factory gauges look really good. One reason I switched out the seats is the factory seats in this car are extremely heavy. They sit really high as well, so you feel like you're kind of like in this truck driving. I mean, you have plenty of headroom, but the seats just like, it's hard to explain. But anyways, it's not a very sporty feel. So I swapped out the seats and at the same time saved like 75 pounds a seat because they were insanely heavy. This is the thing that everyone's waiting for here. Don't mind the scratches and the issues. This is all going to get fixed. But underneath here is not a 5-cylinder. This is a 4.4 liter dual lever head cam Yamaha built V8 out of a equivalent year, 2006 or so, XC90 SUV. Now those only ever came in automatics. The big thing here is that I've taken this V8, said screw the automatic transmission, and I mounted it to the factory 6-speed manual transmission that came in these cars. Now, it fit pretty well as far as mounting to the bolts. You can see there's a couple up there that don't have it. But everything on the bottom half of the engine from the dowels down and around, perfectly lined up. So there wasn't really any issue with doing that. I did have to move the starter. It usually on the 5-cylinder, if it's engine side right here, on the manual, on the automatic one of these, it sits here. But obviously, the shift linkage is here. I wasn't able to, do anything like that because this is a huge start. Look at this. This starter's huge. It's massive. So I cut a hole between the dowel here and there's another bolt right down here, and it kind of fits snugly right between them. I do need to make a better mount. We are going to be doing that. But other than that, other than this solid mount up here that I have to weld to the subframe still, most everything was fine. The trans mount back there is a factory S60R one. The passenger side mount is the mount from the XC90, just because the connection to the engine was in a different position. But that bolted right on. The back is the same. Like I said, the torque mount underneath the transmission is the same as the factory one. Nothing changed for the shift linkage. Everything's fine. Everything was good. So, progress, right? The only thing that needs to be changed is there's a top engine bar that goes across that has another mount on it. You can see right there, this mount right here. It doesn't quite line up. It's a bit too far forward. It just because of a different orientation from the mount between the two engines. But that should be an easy fix. All that's going to be is 2 pieces of a bracket that I can easily cut out of 2 pieces of metal. Really not that hard. But the next big thing with this car is the ECU replacement. So I actually acquired an ECU Master EMU Black. Bought it a while ago. Been working on wiring it into this car. The only issue is there's no diagrams for this car. I have nothing to go off of as far as what wire goes where. I have basic wiring guides that say, you know, this wire is this color, pretty much, all that nonsense. You know, voltages and all that nonsense. But it doesn't say like these 2 wires are for CAN bus, these 5 wires are for the injectors. It doesn't really say any of that. Some of it, not all of it. So I've been really working on trying to get this thing in order. Biggest struggles right now are the drive-by-wire throttle body, which the ECU Master EMU Black does take care of. I need to figure out the ABS. I've taken it out of the car for right now because a couple of these got a little busted up whenever I put the engine in, because I didn't feel like removing the entire front half of the car. And I need to figure out the injection, and also I need to figure out the ignition relay, so that way I could plumb that into the coil packs here. And yeah, I need to put back on the water pump and all that. I have both exhaust manifolds for the engine. The back one's already on, the front one's over there in the garage. Need to figure out the spacing for that. So yeah, let's take some stuff apart and check out some things. How about that? I know you guys couldn't see what I just did, but this one bolt, this Allen bolt right here, not even hot. These were all held in by all these Allen bolts, all these things. And they were all frozen, pretty much all of them. This is aluminum. I don't know what these are. I'm assuming they're steel. They might be aluminum. I doubt it, but all of them were frozen solid in there. That was such a pain. I finally got the last one out over there. I had started this the other day on the other bit that I had recorded. And I couldn't get this one out. It was just so stuck. I soaked it in PB Blasted for 3 days, and I still had to heat it up with that goddamn torch. Holy crap. That was such a pain in the butt. Alright, so now that that's done, got my rubber malute here. Let's see how much this takes to get off. Oh, never mind. It's pretty simple. Oh, good. Okay, there is a metal gasket here, which is good, but man, is this thing dirty. Okay, gotta remove this line. This is already disconnected back here since the map sensor had broken. Okay, let me get a pair of pliers. Or, you know, vice grips work too. Maybe if they're tight. I hate these things. They really suck. You want to come off? No. Go ahead and give this hose a twist. Break that seal. There we go. Easy. Oh, something else is connected. Another vacuum hose. Apparently this thing has like 19 vacuum hoses attached to it. Not really, it's just 2. Why are there so many hoses? Well, that's broken. That's good. You know, working on these things when you're someone my height is never fun. There it goes. This thing. There we go. Okay. One major reason I really wanted to get that off. Look at this porting. Look at this. They blend in these so that way they would run into each other smoothly. They really need a cleaning. They are really dirty. But perfect. These look okay. A little bit of wear on the one corner there, but might be able to put those back on actually. All right, so I'm gonna grab a rag, clean this up some. I'll be right back with you guys. All right, I didn't realize this, but this actually splits to 2 halves the whole way up here by the throttle body. I thought it was open until further in, I guess. I don't know what I thought. But this is interesting. This is a vacuum actuated divider between both halves. So that way at low RPM it could be closed and both sides of the engine can have longer runners, better bottom low end torque. I'm sure it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but obviously it made something because they put a lot of work into this piece. Sorry about the wind noise, it's a little windy. But then at high RPM, when the vacuum increases, it opens this so that way all the cylinders have access to whatever air is in the manifold at the time. So I'm planning on turbocharging this engine, so I might take this apart and just keep it open in there, or I guess just leave it out maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided quite yet what to do with that. So I know things like the Ferrari type manifolds or Lamborghinis or any of your really high, different kind of exotic cars, I guess, have like a connector between both sides of their individual manifolds. I'm assuming for a very similar concept. I'm not sure what to do next with this, but I wanted to see what this was and kind of go from there. It's interesting though, right? So I'm looking at this even further here. I'm trying to figure, I don't know what to do with this. I mean, obviously, just leave it the way it is right now, put that back in there so that way it could run like it does from the factory. I don't know for turbocharging this engine if it really would be beneficial to keep that plate in there or take it back out. It's pretty smooth in here, actually. I'm surprised. Little lip here for the throttle body, but nothing too crazy. The end ports there look like they could probably be opened up a little bit. See if I get my light in here. I keep knocking this thing over. They could probably be opened up just a bit there at the ends, maybe just to stop any sort of turbulence from entering in. It's not terrible, it's pretty clean. It's actually not nearly as dirty in the actual plenum as I thought it was. So I don't know what to do next with this. Clean it for one. Yeah, so if anyone has any ideas for keeping that divide there or taking all this out and just making it a nice big giant open manifold for a boost application, you know, or if I should keep that divide in there and then just lock it shut so that way everything, just each side has its own dependent airflow. You guys have to let me know in the comments. I tried to film this in my hand, didn't work, so we're going back to the tripod. So, kind of back together again. I just set the manifold on there for right now. It's clean-ish. I took a little bit of time and cleaned all this out just a little bit. Again, sorry for the wind noise, it's windy as hell. But I don't have time to really take off the lower intake manifold, soak it, and make sure everything is completely clean. I will do that some other time, probably once I know everything works. Got to make the new starter bracket. That'll happen sometime soon. But I got my wires here. These are my ignition coils, obviously, and this is my injectors, this big bulk connector here. This is kind of what it's going to be. Going to run it around the side here. No worries, got my other stuff there in the back. Don't know if you can see that. This is kind of just like a temporary thing, just to kind of see how long everything needs to be, make sure everything's adequate, and then maybe eventually I'll make a better one. I think I'm going to put the ECU right here, just kind of in place of this one. It's not going to fit in the same bracket, so I'm going to take all that out and just kind of use the same box. I might figure out some way to mount it better, but I don't know. But for right now, that's the way it is. This is probably going to be the last bit of film that I have today on this. I am just working outside, so when the sun goes down, that's all I got. Up next is getting the sensors wired in, water temp. The map sensor is going to be on the ECU, so don't worry about that. I got to figure out some power wires for the ignition coils from the relay in there. Crank position sensor, cam position sensors, get those wired up. I got to find those in my box of miscellaneous Volvo wiring. And then after that, it's water pipes. Got to figure all that out. Got to put the front exhaust back on. One last thing I didn't talk about with this was my custom flywheel and clutch situation. So to get all this mounted up, it wasn't hard to get the transmission and the engine mounted together, but I did have to get a custom flywheel. Since these don't ever come in manual transmissions, they don't make flywheels for them. I was hoping that I could just use the S60R flywheel. The S60R flywheel. They didn't fit. It's an 8-bolt flywheel for the V8 and a 10-bolt flywheel for the S60R. I got one made from spec. It's basically just modeled after the S60R one, so I could use the S60R clutch and everything would kind of just work, I'm hoping. Had to reposition the crank position sensor and the starter, obviously, like I showed you the starter. So I think that's going to be it for today, guys. If you have any comments or suggestions on stuff I should do to this car, and maybe a better way to do things than when I'm doing them, please let me know. Leave them in the comments. Hopefully next time this will be together, wired in, and I don't have to bore you guys so much with everything else. I'll get the axles back in, get all the suspension put back together again, and hopefully this won't give me too many problems. But until then, fingers crossed.